Hey everybody, Vija Williams with Ben Kinney Agent Training, with Place, with all sorts of different entities I can't even list anymore. It is Wednesday at noon Pacific, and so we are here. We are here in your ear, in front of your eyes, however you watch us or listen to us. And we are going to have a really special webinar today. I was compelled by this guy's story. I saw him he did like an 8 or 9 minute video on Instagram, and Lucas we'll post to that in our show notes. But he did a really compelling sort of biography and backstory. And I had known Lucas Pinto as one of the top real estate agents and top real estate team leaders in Seattle. I think you guys did like 150 million in volume, Lucas, last year. Really, really great job. And so I just knew him as this kind of like huge, up and comer, young, hip trend leader, right? That's kind of how I viewed him. And when I watched the video of his story, I was like, there is so much depth there, and there is so much struggle and fight, even at the age of 30, Lucas, and to have hit the achievements you've hit. I think it's worthy of being told, right? So I asked Lucas if I could have him tell us his story today, and it might seem a little random, but one of the things, if you get on Lucas's Instagram, and I hope you do, we'll post it in the chat and on notes. He talks a ton about crypto. And I just, I've always been intimidated by crypto. I'm intimidating investing in something I don't fully understand, right? I know real estate. I don't really understand crypto. So I just asked him if we could pick his brain and have him explain crypto to us like we're 5-year-olds. And, why is it important, and just kind of walk into that and talk about, how we're starting to see it in real estate. So with that said, welcome, Lucas Pinto.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and hopefully provide some value to all the listeners and everyone who's watching. So.
Yeah, well, you will, you 100% will. So why don't we start with the present day? So tell us about, where you are right now, present day, and about your real estate team. And then if it's okay, I'd like to go back and start at the beginning.
Sure thing. Yeah. So today I lead a team out of Seattle, Washington, King, Pierce, Snohomish County. We year to date have done 34 million. Our goal for the year is 200 million in volume. I have a team of about 14 people, 14 realtors, 2 staff, part-time videographer. My kind of what I got going on right now, aside from the real estate business, is I'm very involved in crypto. I've been investing in crypto for a few years, and I'm in the process of trying to launch a syndication. So I own 22 doors, 20 apartment building, and I want to expand that and have my team invest with me. So yeah, I got a few projects. That's what I got going on today. Having fun doing it. So yeah.
That's awesome. And I mean, I just love that you, in your introduction, you brought your team in, how you're bringing them into wealth building opportunities. I love that. Yeah. Where did you grow up? Let's start there. And I'd love to kind of have you start like where your parents grew up and what
yeah. Yeah. So I was actually born in Brazil. My parents are from Brazil. I moved here when I was 6 years old, and we moved to Naples, Florida. And Naples is a very wealthy retirement community. And we're immigrants that just got to the States, right? So to me, growing up as a kid, like this was like the promised land. Most people don't realize, not being from the US, how the outside world views this country as like, oh my God, I made it here. We grew up, pretty humble, right? My mom used to clean houses. My dad was cleaning boats. As long as I could remember, money was an issue. Money was the issue. Right. So from a young age, growing up with friends all around me whose families were very wealthy, I was determined to figure the whole money thing out. That's always been my thing. I wanted to know it, understand it, and get some of it. So yeah, that's and then, at 19, packed my bags and moved to Seattle and been here for 11 years now.
So I'm curious about that. You're in Naples, Florida, which is, last I checked, about the farthest point on the map you could get to come to Seattle. Why Seattle?
Yeah, great question. So I finished high school and no one told me in high school that they were taking that stuff seriously. I thought we were just there having fun.
Just having fun.
Yeah. So
Tell my kids that, please.
I finished high school and everyone's going off to college. And I was just like, okay, I was still working at a restaurant job, which was a part-time gig that I had in high school. And I felt this pressure from my parents and from everyone around me to go to college. And I just wanted to learn how to make money. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to college and pay this crazy tuition for this long. Like, that doesn't add up. It didn't make sense. So I literally opened the map and I'm like, I need to get out of here. I felt a smaller city. I felt the city closing in on me. Right. And I just opened a map and I'm like, Seattle, the minimum wage here is pretty high. So that sounds like a good idea. Bought a plane ticket, quit my job. And I landed in Seattle and I didn't know where I was going to live. I was at the airport. I'm like, okay, I'm here now. Let's figure out where I should stay while I'm here. And it was kind of, at 19, it's kind of a crazy decision, but I'm probably one of the best decisions I made was making it out here.
So like, did you have any idea like what the climate was, what the vibe was here? Did you have any?
I took a trip here.
Okay.
1 year back. I played rugby in high school and I was thinking about, maybe going to college and playing rugby in college. So I did a trip here before and I kind of just felt like I fell in love with, I remember taking this exit into downtown Seattle and just the gloominess and the busyness of the city. And I was like, oh, this is great. So that's always been it, because Seattle is so different from Florida. I mean,
it could not be more different. Like, yeah. It's so funny that you're like, that's a good perspective. That's great. The gloominess is great.
Yeah. No, if you grow up in all warm climates throughout your life, what you want is something different. Right. So,
yeah, that's fair. So, so you got here and you didn't have much money. In fact, you had a really cool story about it where you quit your server job, right? And you did one last banquet gig. Mm-hmm. In Naples. I think it's a cool story for you to share.
So this is a very cool story. And it's kind of interesting because it goes to show like that story defined a lot of who I am and why I have the team today. Cause I feel a sense of obligation to always hopefully be that leverage point in someone's life. And what I mean by that is my mom would clean this lady's house, Miss Linda. And she asked my mom, hey, I know your son works at a restaurant. Would he want to help me do this dinner? It's only a few hours. And my mom's like, yeah, I'll ask him. So I said, sure. I was 1 week out from coming to Seattle and I had maybe, I don't know, $1,200, which is what I was going to move here with. And I did this banquet for a few hours, her and her husband, nicest people ever. Like maybe today, that's probably a $50 million home right on the beach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, I mean, just a compound. And they were the nicest people and helped them with the dinner. And it was great. And then afterwards, she asked me, what do I owe you? I said, oh, I don't know. I mean, whatever you think it's fair. I don't really have a price. We never discussed payment. She's like, okay. So she went and chatted with her husband. She gave me an envelope. She said, hey, I don't want you to open this till you get home. And I left. When I got home, I opened it and it was a check for $2,500.
I love that story.
Right. And it's one of those things where like today, it's not necessarily about the money. It's about the money at that point in my life. Yeah. And the, the impact that money had in the trajectory of my move over here. If I didn't have that $2,500, I wouldn't have made it in Seattle and I would have had to move back. Because things got really tight within a few months of moving here. It turned out, $1,500 that I was going to move here with, just simply not enough. Right. So.
Yeah. And it's cool because you had a clear understanding of the impact that it had. I mean, like you said, it shaped you, and it sounds like you immediately understood that this was a game changer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at a stage in life where I was looking for a sign that I was going in the right direction. And that was it. So
yeah, if that's not confirmation, I don't know what is. That's incredible. So you land in Seattle, you're homeless. What's next? You're 19, which is crazy.
Yeah. So I'm 19. I found a friend of a friend who was renting out a room. And I said, great, called the guy, talked to him. He's like, yeah, the room is small, but you could stay here, I'll rent it out for X amount of dollars. I said, okay, what's the address? Take a taxi to his address. And it was a mobile home park in Bothell. No joke. Still there today.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, are these mobile homes? So I lived in a mobile home in the smallest bedroom ever in a mobile home for probably about 9 months. Wow. About a 92 Ford Escort, and went looking for jobs. And then the first job that I got here was as a server's assistant at a restaurant called Caspian of Bellevue. That's still there today. Great food.
Trying to think where it is. Okay.
It's right in Bellred Road. Behind.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was 10 years ago. Right. So the first year here, I couldn't get necessarily a full-time job. And I think I made $19,000.
Wow.
The first full year in Seattle. Right.
And it's Seattle's expensive. So that's tough. That's really rough.
Yeah.
So then what, it sounds like you were in the hospitality industry for a while. What was kind of the next step?
Yeah. So throughout that time, I've always been interested in finance. So throughout all that period, high school, even after high school, I read every book I could get my hands on stocks, investing, real estate. I read Millionaire Real Estate Agent before I was in real estate. Right?
Yeah. Wow.
So it went kind of, I was server's assistant, and I was like, okay, my goal is to become a bartender. Bartenders make $60,000, $70,000 a year. Did that. And then which, by the way, that must have sounded like a lot at the time. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was on cloud 9 back then. Yeah. 21 years old, making 70K.
That's a lot of money. It's in 10 years ago, pre-inflation. I mean, that's really good.
Yeah. And I was having a blast doing it, but right around 22, 23, I had a friend who was in sales. He was doing inside sales for an insurance a company that sells leads to insurance companies. It's Zillow for realtors, but for insurance companies. He said, hey, I think you do really good in sales. And I was like, I always thought sales is kind of like the used car salesman. I'm like, I don't know. It's not for me. Then I read Grant Cardone's book, Sell or Be Sold. And that completely changed my perspective on sales. So I'm like, I'm going to try this thing out. So I went to work at Quote Wizard, and within my first year there, I made 6 figures. So I was making 6 figures, all inside sales over the phone.
And by the way, that was like 7 years ago. So that's really wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I thought, okay, I made it. Like, this is it. I made it.
Of course you did. Yeah.
$100,000 benefits are included, and the office environment is great. And I was killing it at the job. Turned out I was really good at sales, and I hated it. Like, we weren't selling the best product. I would have clients that I would sell, and they would call me 6-7 months later complaining and asking for refunds, and just the environment that I was in there was a very complacent place. Like, no one had, there were people in there for years that had no plans of doing it bigger, better, more. So I was like, I don't think I'm in the right place. and I had saved up some money at the time, and I went to a good friend of mine who was a bit of a mentor, and he was one of the top, like really early on at Zillow back in like 2007, 2008.
Oh yeah, really early.
So, he did really well there, and he understood real estate. So I went to him and I said, Kurt, I have some money saved up. I'm thinking about going into real estate. And he goes, man, don't go into real estate. Don't do it. So it's so competitive in Seattle. It's like, and these guys already, the dominant players already established. It's just, I don't think you would make it. Don't do it. And next day I got in real estate.
Of course you did. It makes me, I would say the same thing.
Quick quote wizard and went full-time in real estate. That was, 6.5 years ago now. Yeah. 6 years.
6.5 years ago. How'd you do your first year?
So first 6 months, first 5 months, I burned through all my savings.
Yeah. Perfect. It's about right.
Yeah. Didn't sell anything. I was, first day in real estate. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? No one would tell me what to do. I was trying to be an individual agent, and eventually I joined a brokerage that offered a ton of training. It was a boutique brokerage, and they taught me the game a little bit. So the first 5 months I didn't sell anything. The remainder of the year, I think I sold 19 homes, 17 or 19.
Oh, nice.
And, in those 6 or 7 months, I made more money than I ever did. Right.
So can I just pause? Because there's a really good lesson there. There's a really, really good lesson. And for those of you watching who are in real estate, also for those of you watching not in real estate, you get this obviously extraordinarily talented human, right? And he didn't sell anything for 5 or 6 months. By the way, either did I. If that tells you anything. 2 of the top agents in the area, right? We didn't sell anything. You know why? Then all we needed was direction. All we needed was, training skills. And then look at your next 6 months. Look what happens when you match talent with training. It's just a good story and a good reminder that you can have all the talent in the world, but you have to learn your craft, and you have to learn how to do whatever it is you're doing. Right. So I just wanted to pause on that because it was just such an obvious example. How do you 0 to 19? I don't know if people realize, if you're not in real estate and you're watching this, the average agent sells, I hear, anywhere from 4 to 7 homes a year, depending on the stat you're looking at. So 19 in 6 months is, you could be a 20-year veteran and have a good career and sell that. So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. And that taught me an important lesson, where everything I went to do in life after that, I'm like, okay, the cheat code is to find the person that's the best at whatever I'm trying to learn, and just do whatever they do. Right. That's right. The reason why I wanted to do it on my own for the first 5 months, if I'm being honest, was ego.
Yeah.
I could figure it out. Oh, I'm going to do it my own way. And you can't reinvent the wheel coming into an industry or just about anything. You have to learn the basics and the fundamentals, and then you could start to create your own lane. So
I'm so glad you said that. Models and systems always. Why would you equate? Yeah, always. I love that. Yeah. So you kind of dive into real estate. You sell 19 your first year. Walk us through kind of years like 2 through 5. What did those look like?
Yeah. So year 2, I don't remember what I did in units, but I was still an individual realtor. Year 2, I did more transactions, made more money. And I was stupid, right? Like I would make money, and like I never had money before, like real money. So I'm like, okay, go buy this Tesla. Let me get the nicest penthouse on this high rise. And, in my early 20s, I wasn't, I invested some of it in, luckily, but not as aggressively as I should have been. And then right around year 3, I was getting to the point where I was just kind of like, real estate is kind of lonely when you do it on your own.
Yeah, that's right.
There's like, I was kind of going through the motions and just, I wasn't as excited about it, because the excitement that money gets you doesn't get you very far. You will eventually, like, there's got to be something else that pulls you emotionally. And that's when I needed help at the time. So then I brought on an assistant. That assistant wanted to become a realtor, so she eventually became my first realtor. Fast forward to today, and then like right around year 4, we added, I think year 4, we maybe had a team of like 4 or 5. And
Okay.
I mean, just last year, for example, we only had 8 realtors. So we did all 2021 with 8.
Wow, that's really good. Wow.
Yeah, so we did 103 million last year with 8 realtors, including myself. Now we have 14 realtors coming into this year, so I think we could push for 200 million.
That's incredible. And I think, another thing I'll point out is that from everything I can see and, just kind of getting to know you these last few months, you're also an incredible leader. And that doesn't always translate, right? You can be a really, really great salesperson. In fact, it usually doesn't translate in real estate. In most industries, it doesn't. You can be a really great salesperson and not understand how to lead others. In fact, I would argue I was a horrible leader when I started the leadership journey. I was just so used to pushing myself so hard. That translated into steamrolling people early on in my leadership career, right? I just like go, 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 push, 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 because that's what I did to myself internally. And, at 30, I think it's unbelievable how loyal and happy your people seem, and how naturally you've taken to leadership. What are your thoughts on that? Do you study leadership? Is that just something you do naturally? Do you have any principles of leadership that you follow?
Yeah, 100%. So I've always, throughout this whole period, I was always reading on average 20 to 30 books a year.
Oh.
I was taking, I probably spent more than 100,000 on courses and seminars and Tony Robbins events. But when it comes to leadership, if I was to recommend one book, and this is the only book anybody will ever need on leadership, is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
So good. So good. I love it.
Very good book. And I see my role as a leader. I think of it this way, and this is the lenses that I choose to wear. The people who work with me are probably going to devote about 1/4 of their life to my business. Like, that is substantial. A person's choosing to spend 1/4 of their entire life helping you build a business, helping you build a brand, helping you achieve your vision. If they're trading their valuable time, which is the most scarce resource in this world, for us to build this company, then my obligation is to make sure that person at some point in their life reaches financial freedom, so they never have to work again.
Mm-hmm.
And I've developed as a leader throughout the years, but I think a lot of it is, I like seeing people win. It's very rewarding to me to see somebody build and develop into a bigger, better person and see the wins. That to me is super rewarding. And that kind of gave me an excitement to be in real estate again, because I was kind of losing the excitement around, year 3 or so. So,
Gary Keller has a great quote around that, and it's fall in love with the boredom of mastery. Because mastery is boring. To get 10,000 hours is boring. And just when people start seeing success and they can build momentum and build steam, most of us get burnt out. That's like the biggest self-sabotage we do, because it does get kind of boring. And the more boring it is, the better at your craft you're honing. So it's a tricky balance. And so that is a great time to grow a team. I often have people ask me that, like, when should I start a real estate team, or when should I start any team? And as long as you have an abundance of leads, and I would say you've hit that point where you're bored with yourself, now it's about how can I mentor and train others to have this success? That's the right time, right?
Yeah.
What makes a good leader, Lucas?
Um, I think first and foremost, taking extreme ownership, right? And what I mean by that is if someone in your team is failing, it is not that person, it is your fault. And it's your fault because either you didn't set crystal clear expectations, or maybe you didn't train that person properly, or maybe you didn't verify their work early on, or you maybe hired the wrong person, right? But it always falls back to the leader. And the valuable thing about taking extreme ownership is it puts the ball in your court. There's something you could do about it. If I blame someone else, I have no control over that. I lose my control by putting blame. Yeah. So, I think that is one of the many recipes that makes a good leader. So
how would your team describe you as a leader? What would they say if I went and asked, 4 of your team members, what's Lucas like as a leader? Why do you stay with him? What would they say?
I think they think of me as very honest and fair, also kind of intense and energetic. Like I'm always like, let's do more, let's do bigger, better. Yeah. But they know, everyone on the team knows that I actually care. And you can't bullshit your way into acting like you care. Like you got to truly care.
How do you show that, Lucas? How do they feel that you care?
Well, we get very personal from the time someone joins the team. The very first thing they do is they do a vision board and they share it with everybody on the team. I take a picture of that vision board and I know in the back of my head, like this person on the team wants to take this trip with their mom. This person on the team wants to do A, B, and C. So that vision board exercise, it gets, especially when someone joins the team, it always gets emotional and it gets real, and
I love that. And I'm stealing it. And that's happening. Yeah. That's so good. I love that. So anytime they join, you send them on an assignment to go do a vision board.
Right. That's part of our training program. Within the first week, they're sitting in a conference room where everyone is there in person and they're sharing their vision board and the whys behind it. And I think that gets everyone else bought into that person's goal. Everyone wants to see everyone else succeed. So, yeah.
That's really quite amazing that you figured that out that young. Good for you. Congrats. I'm really impressed. I continue to be impressed with you. Okay. So I thought that story was both inspirational and worthy being told because I think Lucas, like kind of switching gears into finance now and into investing in general, right? Let's before we dive in, into the deep weeds of crypto, maybe we should start with your overall philosophy of investment. And I'm extraordinarily interested in it because I'm in Gen X, right? And I'm interested because I have 3 kids and, my oldest is 21 and there's a whole new world of, I think your generation, you guys are going to embrace crypto, like we embraced .com fervor, in my generation. And, just like my generation was buying Microsoft and Apple stock, your generation is going to be like Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? And I just think it's really interesting. I'm also noticing your generation is, still really gung-ho about real estate investing. I'm feeling that very strongly from my colleagues, people I work with, and people I hire. So maybe we can start with, your overall philosophy of investment and what your plan is at 30. I think everyone would find that really interesting.
Yeah. So this is, I'll try to compartmentalize this. Over the course of the last 18 months, I've probably read about 15 to 20 books on the history of money, as far back as we can go on what money and currency is. But I'm going to start off with the question, right? If I were to ask you, so this is an interesting concept to think about. So let's say you have $1 million and you want to give that to your grandkids someday. You want that money to last through the test of time for 100 years so it reaches your grandkids. How would you do it?
Are you really asking me, or is it a rhetorical question?
I'm asking you.
You're actually asking me.
You got $1 million. You want to give it to your grandkids. It has to stand the test of time for 100 years.
I would buy real estate.
Exactly. So that is probably one of the best investments you can make. But let's think about other asset classes that you could be in. Okay. You can hang on to cash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. What has cash done in the last 100 years?
It's lost money.
Cash has lost 98% of its value from 100 years ago.
That's right.
And that is, we're talking about the US dollar, which the US dollar and the pound have done the best out of all currencies. Most other currencies have completely collapsed in the last 100 years. So you're like, okay, so that's not a good store of value. Let me cross that out to the list. Okay, so what about stocks? Well, stocks are subject to a lot of different things. Like the CEO could go crazy. They could create more share of the stock and dilute the stock. The company could go under. Like there's so many variables involved. So, okay, maybe that could be a good option, but I don't know. Bonds are going to crap. They're not returning anything. Jerome Powell said, we're not even thinking about raising interest rates. Okay, that's out of the picture. Real estate, that tends to be pretty good. Real estate has done phenomenally well. I mean, you look at a property that was trading 100 years ago and you look at what it's worth today and it's like, wow, that's fantastic. The one challenge with real estate though is taxation, right? They're always going to raise taxes on real estate. It's just a fact. It's just taxes are going to continue going up. And real estate is also very subject to the nation state that it's in, right? So now here's where crypto comes in. The way I see crypto and Bitcoin and the value that it provides is the best store of value through the test of time. Like you look at the last decade and the best performing asset class of the last decade was Bitcoin. So it's obviously no longer something that's just, oh, that's kind of an interesting concept. It was the best performing asset class of the last decade. And if you think about the concept of money and currency as we know it, the perfect money has 6 things. It's scarce, right? It's divisible, it's acceptable, it's portable, it's durable, and it has resistance to counterfeit. Right? So as far as the world has known, the best currency that we have ever seen is gold. The challenge with gold, it's not very portable and it's not very divisible. It's also not very acceptable.
Well, and the government can seize gold.
And the government can seize gold like they have done in the past. And if you think about the US dollar, what's the challenge with US dollar? It's no longer scarce. They could press a button and create more out of it in thin air. And most people don't understand. Which
they just did 2 years ago.
About 40% of all the US dollars ever created were printed in the last 2 years.
40%? I didn't know that stat.
That is a mind-boggling concept.
Crazy.
People don't understand. And when the government prints money, here's the facts. Here's who it hurts. It hurts people who don't have assets. Yeah. That's who gets the whiplash.
Yeah.
We're seeing that today. We're seeing if you're a billionaire, you did nothing in the last 2 years and you got richer if you had assets.
Yeah.
So the folks who are suffering are folks who don't have assets. And now for them to enter the market and acquire assets, it gets more expensive and tougher.
Well, and Lucas, the example I give my clients all the time right now, and I love that historical perspective. I didn't know that about 98% of the dollar. That's a fascinating one. And it immediately clicked with me when you said it. I'm like, of course, it had to have been, because what I've been telling my clients is, that 100K you've had sitting in your bank account now, for over a year, it's now worth 92,000, 93,000, right? But the 100K I put into real estate about a year ago, that's now worth 125. So the delta now is it's no longer between 100 and 125, it's between 93 and 125. And the more time goes on, your 100,000 is effectively going to get diminished. And in another year, that 125 is going to be whatever 25% via do math. It's a little over 150. So whatever that is. But the delta, you've done nothing. You now have a $60,000 delta.
Right.
Just, 24 months at the rate it's going, right? And then Lucas, you look at the business class. I mean, you talk about the best cash flowing asset, is owning a business. Look at your business, look at my businesses. I mean, it's, you have to have an asset.
Yeah, it's absolutely the worst place. And I tell my clients this all the time. The worst place you could have your wealth parked in right now is cash.
Yeah,
it is. They're devaluing the dollar at such a fast rate that it's mind boggling. Now, this is kind of where crypto comes in. And I think and it's so like I got involved in Bitcoin in 2015 because my best friend was one of the smartest people I know. He tried explaining it to me and I was looking at him like he had two heads.
That's how I feel, honestly.
I trusted him. So I said, okay, I'll buy some of this crap, whatever. It was like $3,000 back then and I bought a couple of coins. I still have them today. It's been a great investment. And over the last 2 years is when I remember when COVID started, that's when I got really serious into understanding it. And no one that's listening to this is going to truly understand Bitcoin and crypto just off this chat. All I'm looking to do is get you intrigued enough to go and put in 100 hours on your free time, because I'm willing to bet, and I am betting, half of my net worth is in crypto.
Wow. Okay.
100%. I have the apartment buildings and literally 50% in real estate, 50% in crypto.
Okay. Okay.
In 2020, I completely got out of the stock market. I said, this thing is a freaking joke. Like you look at how these companies are valued, like what? Most of these companies are not even making a profit.
It's insane. Yeah.
So it's all, my intention for this is just to get people intrigued enough to want to take the time to start understanding. My recommendation, and I made everyone on my team do this. I said, hey, pull out your damn phones. You're going to put about less than 1% of your net worth, whatever you choose, but you're going to buy some damn crypto. And I made them do it. Why? Because if you buy some, even if it's a small amount, you're going to watch it. And when you watch it, you're going to get curious about it. And the more curious you get about it, the more you start to understand. So do you have any specific questions? Is there?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. And by the way, I want to start there. I think that's really interesting. So I found myself just now, I'm like, well, if it's 1% of my net worth, even 10% of my net worth, that is, I don't want to, but that's for some people, that's like the price of a house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I feel about that? Do I feel comfortable with that? And right now the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I found the skeptic in me going, all right, do I accept his challenge? Do I accept a challenge? And I think I do. I think I accept your challenge for 1%. Mm-hmm. So I think I'll do that, which for me is, probably the price of a, low-end car because I'm working on the net worth. So in a nutshell, what is crypto? Like I'm 5 years old. What is crypto?
Okay. Crypto is essentially a long-term store of value. It's a long-term store of value that here's the key part. It can't be tampered or fucked with. No one could go out and create more Bitcoins. It's set amount of Bitcoins, and it's a technology that cannot be tampered with by any government, any person, any entity. It is a honest ledger, unlike the US dollar, because it relies on politicians and the government and people who have their own self-interest managing this ledger. Think of an honest ledger that no one manages. No one can touch, shut it down, fuck it up, print more of it. It is set. And so that is essentially what makes it valuable. That's
blockchain, right? That's you're referring to blockchain, which is effectively a transactional record of every single transaction. Is that correct?
Correct. The blockchain is a transactional record of every transaction that goes on in the blockchain is recorded.
Okay. So here's where like my first, I'm not going to ask you deeply like technical questions because we're not going to be able to cover that here. But I do have a general question, like a follow-up to that, because I've been wondering about this. So I get on Coinbase and I have $1,500 on Coinbase. So that's it. Right. And I have, I think, two coins. I think I have Ethereum and I have Bitcoin. Right. Yeah. And those are a portion of one, because I believe, a Bitcoin's what, $37,000, $35,000 for it, whatever it is. Right. Yeah. So did Coinbase effectively buy a bunch of coins and then they're reselling it? I don't understand. I guess I am a little confused about how I can buy a portion of one.
Yeah. So great question. So what makes Bitcoin the perfect currency in a lot of ways? It's infinitely divisible. You could have 0.0000001 of a Bitcoin.
Which I probably do.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's better. Like most people focus so much, I can't afford to buy one Bitcoin. Don't worry about that. You could buy $500 worth of Bitcoin, $100 worth of Bitcoin. So what Coinbase is just, it's similar to what a bank is for money today. There's two ways to hold your cryptocurrency. You could hold it in a centralized organization like Coinbase, or you could put it on a little off market where it's completely untraceable off the internet and it's in a little wallet. No one could touch it. No one could tamper with it. The downside of having it somewhere like Coinbase is if the US government gets involved and they say, we want to tax you, or we require you guys to liquidate your assets, Coinbase will have to comply with whatever nation you're at. If it's on uncentralized, decentralized, off the internet, no one could touch it. It's your wallet. It's your wallet. You could take it anywhere. And think about how this might be usable.
I was just going to ask that. So you read my mind, because I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I have this wallet. Let's say I have $50,000 on my wallet, right? How do I spend it? What if I want to cash it in? Like, what does that look like?
Great question. So let me ask you this. Let's say you're in Russia right now. Would you rather have $50,000 of Russian currency, or would you have $50,000 of Bitcoin? That's where it starts to become valuable, right? If you're in a Nazi camp and they're seizing, and this is where it gets like really real, and you start to understand, oh crap, this could really make an impact. If you're in a Nazi camp and they're seizing all your assets, right? They can't seize your crypto. They can't take it.
But you have to hide that. It's a physical wallet.
It's if you could log in online. You could log in. It's not I could pull up my wallet from any computer anywhere.
And you could trade it that way.
I could trade it and I could send it to anyone in the world. And that's what makes it cool. And it's global money that no entity could stop you from using it. It's your money. No one gets to tell you what to do with it.
So what if you put $1,000 into crypto 10 years ago and you cash it for $360,000? You're saying the IRS doesn't see it?
Well, the IRS would definitely see it.
How does that work?
So that's the thing. There are ways to, from what I understand, I'm not that involved, but there are ways to not to avoid the IRS. There's loopholes through that still in crypto, but most of the time you're going to have to pay your taxes. The challenge is,
and by the way, I'm all for paying taxes. I'm not advocating not. I'm just baffled by like, what do you do? Like, who can trace it? Like, it's bizarre to me.
Yeah. So the challenge with that is okay, let's say you have your money in Coinbase, you made your $1,500 in there, turned into $300,000. You want to liquidate that. You will be paying taxes. Now, here's the challenge. The US government moves so damn slow that there's no crystal clear crypto regulation. And like, no one knows, like, is a Bitcoin treated like a stock? Is it treated like real estate? Is it treated like a commodity? It's a mess. And the challenge, and once the US government does put, and it's just a matter of time, once they do put clear regulation in place for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which it's just a matter of time, they will have to address it. When they do, that will drastically increase the adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Why is that? Because these institutional investors with billions and trillions of dollars, and their clients are sitting back saying, okay, what about this Bitcoin that got an average of 213% return for the last decade, year over year? Why didn't we buy any of that?
Yeah. Jeez.
They can't, institutional haven't gotten into the space because there's no clear regulation.
Okay.
Once there is clear regulation and the government figures out what they're doing and how they're going to treat it, we're going to see a speed up in adoption and naturally an increase in price.
So do crypto people want that?
Some do, some don't. The crypto community is very diverse,
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, crypto community is so massive. I mean, there's crypto art, there's cryptocurrency, there's crypto property, there's crypto securities, there's a crypto platform, which is what Ethereum is. Mm-hmm. All of this, like, you could go down the rabbit hole. I mean, you're discovering a brand new world. And I believe, and I'm making a bet that this world will for sure disrupt the world as we know it. And it will disrupt major industries. I think insurance will be disrupted. I think real estate will be disrupted. I think Wall Street will be disrupted. And
I think you're right. I have a sense. I think you're right. I think that there's a whole new generation coming behind us, Gen Xers, that have decided that. And are comfortable enough with it that, and, you guys are all coming into your wealth. I think you're 100% right. That's why you're here, and then I think there's a lot of us, older who can see that and are like, all right, like, now I have to learn it. I am curious as far as like risks of it. So I always thought it was, you kind of mentioned like a wallet, like a physical wallet. Like a thumb drive or whatever it would be. So I thought if someone stole that wallet, they get your crypto. Is that true? Or you said you can log in? Like, how does that work?
So there's a saying in the crypto community, not your key, not your wallet.
Okay.
Not your key, not your wallet. So you have to have the key in order to enter the wallet.
Okay.
And it is one of the toughest. Well, I mean, like, there's been instances of hackers hacking, different organizations, but as far as I see it, it's probably one of the safest ways to carry around money, in my opinion. But of course, you got to do your due diligence. For your average person listening to this, what they should do is pop into crypto.com or Coinbase and just buy it there and leave it there. These are major institutions. That money is not going to go anywhere. It's going to be safe there. No one's going to hack you there. Just keep it there. Put a couple $100 in there and just watch over the months, read a little bit, start to understand it. And of course, and people get so focused on the short cycle. It's going to take like 10, 15 years for like if not more, for this to really be.
But that's good for us watching this and listening to this. That's good. That's great because it gives us all time to get in now and to understand it and to benefit from it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, cryptocurrency has been my best performing asset class by far. And I've done really well in my real estate investment.
Well, let's tie them together and let's use real estate, Lucas. But for all of you watching or listening who aren't real estate, doesn't matter, substitute real estate for any asset. Practically speaking, what's the first way, besides the odd news story that you see, what's the first way you think this starts going mainstream? Do we start seeing earnest money deposits or literally like purchase and sale agreements that instead of US dollars, instead of saying, 500,000 US dollars, it says, I don't even know the nomenclature for it, but 40 bits or whatever. Do you see that happening?
So I think it will eventually happen. I think probably the closest thing we'll see first, and we're already seeing it, is lending. Like I think and there's already institutions out there where, for example, I did this. I parked 2 of my Bitcoins and I parked it there and I was able to pull out $100,000 cash. I didn't liquidate it. Right. Yeah. So you could see how that will start coming into real estate lending, right? Where you park because most lenders today don't count cryptocurrency as a real asset when you purchase a house. I think that's going to change in the next few years.
So just with asset verification, they don't count that. Oh,
they don't. Like
interesting.
Most lenders that I know, traditional lenders today, like for example, every the commercial property that I bought, that I was trying to show income, and I said, hey, I got X amount in crypto. They say, yeah, we can't count that.
Oh, interesting. Huh. Okay.
So I think lending will get impacted. I think what we're going to see a lot, title and escrow is a easy. I think it's very vulnerable to be impacted by cryptocurrency because what Ethereum allows individuals to do is create smart contracts. And if you think about what title and escrow is, essentially, it's a contract, right? Yeah. If you do this, then I will do A. And that's an expensive contract. And you could do all that expensive in the sense that, title and escrow businesses have a pretty good profit margin. What smart contracts will allow us to do is do all that on the blockchain, more secure, more verified for a fraction of the cost.
I have long thought that title is going to be most affected as far as our core services in real estate, because the blockchain is effectively an abstract of title. That's really what it is, right? And I remember the first time I learned about blockchain, I was like, well, that's title.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think escrow, just on a side note, there will always be a need for a neutral third party to escrow deals. I mean, we use escrow for domains, like having just someone, I'm going to give you your money but they're not going to give me the keys to the kingdom until they see my money. And I'm not going to give them my money till I see the keys to the kingdom. There's always a need for a third party to facilitate, but I think title is exciting for this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, there's already been real estate transactions done nationwide, all for crypto. There's a website. So there's syndications going on. This is super interesting. I had a meeting with, I forgot the name of the company, but it's basically a real estate syndication where you go in and you could invest $5 on this multifamily property that they just bought. Right. Okay. So you could, you will be in the future, you'll be able to tokenize real estate. Let's say I own my house here today and I need some money. I'm going to create 100 tokens of my house and I could sell those 100 tokens. And 100 different people could own fraction shares of my house.
That's like what Picasso's doing. I mean,
very similar to what Picasso's doing, except they're doing it on, a higher price point and not as many shares. right? But you could tokenize, you're in the future, you're going to be able to tokenize just about anything. Think of it like,
it's interesting.
It is very interesting, and it'll be able to create, and here's what it does. And it really starts getting exciting. It starts creating mini communities that are super valuable. Let's say you have an artist that you absolutely love. You saw this person perform and they're small and you're like, man, this person's great. I love his music. What if you're able to tokenize that artist and now you could invest with that artist? You believe in that person. You buy a token of that person. And as that person's career builds up, you will get dividends on having invested that person.
You know who created that, by the way, on a total random side note? Spencer Raskoff of Zillow, the original CEO of Zillow. His dad started that off with, I believe it was David Bowie or the Rolling Stones, where he was the first one that sold like effectively, like they were like bonds in the artist, that they effectively invested in the artist and got paid dividends like that, by the way. Just totally random side note.
Yeah. It's
that's fascinating to do it in crypto. So, I mean, as a practicing real estate agent, I am going to bring it to real estate a little bit. As a practicing real estate agent, what do you think we're going to need to start understanding from a transactional standpoint with crypto in the next 5-10 years?
I think just getting a basic understanding of what crypto is. I mean, I watched an interview with Ryan Serhant. And his team is doing over $1 billion in sales in New York City. Yeah. He's like, you know what? I've been really shocked at how much younger my demographic has gotten and how much more individuals are younger kids buying real estate from crypto.
Yeah.
So if you just have a basic understanding of what crypto is, I think that's already a start. I think you're already ahead of the population. There's a bunch of different websites that out today that, kind of, they pitch different ideas as to kind of how you can merge both of the worlds. I don't think no one has solved that problem yet. It's not relevant enough to where you should focus your energy and time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What are some good websites for everybody to kind of start down the rabbit trail, right?
Yeah. So let me look it up. I believe hope.com is a great website.
Okay.
Go to hope.com. You should listen to Michael Saylor.
Saylor. How do you spell Saylor?
Saylro. So
okay.
Michael Saylor is the CEO of MicroStrategy, and he was the first institutional investor, like the really, first person that had an actual, publicly traded stock that went out about billions of Bitcoins for his company's portfolio, right? So he made a big wave. But hope.com, check out Michael Saylor. There's a lot of good books. The History of Money is a really good book.
I was just going to ask you, because you said you read a lot of books. So The History of Money. Okay.
Yeah. History of Money.
Any other ones that jump out at you?
Yeah, actually, Digital Gold is a really good one. And this doesn't touch on Bitcoin at all, but I think Ray Dalio's perspective of what markets are doing. He believes that the US dollar has a good chance of no longer being the reserve currency of the world in the next 15 years. And I believe that as well. And Ray Dalio's probably the most respected hedge fund manager in the world. So his new book, The Changing World Order, is a really good read.
I read his other book, so I'll read the new one. Yeah.
Yeah. Why Nations Fail and Succeed. It's a really good book. It's very, very technical, but look, to summarize it, here's what I believe, right? And I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong, but this is simply what I believe. I believe that, government is too big and we're going to fail our currency. We're going to fail our currency. And that when it does fail, what's the solution? Like we've never, I think the adoption of cryptocurrency will give everyone in the world a better playing field, a more fair playing field. And I believe in it. And we'll sit down 10 years down the road and see what happens.
Amazing.
I find it exciting. Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, I can't think of a better place to wrap, because I mean, that was kind of a mic drop. Very, very interesting. And I think if nothing else, this is going to get me farther down my rabbit hole. Right. And I will read some of those books. I think I'm going to take you up on your challenge with 1%. I'm going to do that. And so I might be hitting you up for some some more tips offline. But thank you, Lucas Pinto. How can everybody get a hold of you the best? What's the best way for anyone to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So you can send me a message or a DM on Instagram. I have all the links to my website there, but Instagram is Luke, LUKE _is_winning.
Luke is winning.
Is winning on Instagram.
And we'll drop that in chat and on show notes for those of you who are listening to this on our podcast. Well, thank you, Lucas. We appreciate you. And for all of you guys, I will see you same time, same place next week, Wednesdays at noon live. But you can always listen to these on record. In fact, most of you do. Our statistics show that most of you guys listen to this on replay, and that's great. So thank you, Lucas. Thanks for spending an hour with us today. And I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. Have a good day, everyone.